Goher Mobed is the daughter of Minoo Kharas, one of Baba's, intimate mandali, starting back in the 30s. And I'm always interested, and some of you didn't hear her speak earlier, but uh, what a person is like in their childhood and their early adulthood. What are the things that they're dealing with, and the ideals and the hints that let us know that they have this destiny, this magnificent destiny ahead of them. We have Josh there. He's kind of wondering, you know, what elements he has to start cultivating if it's if he's gonna reach the mountaintop. So what I'm saying is, can you let us know, tell us about your father in growing up?
Yes, absolutely. So, Jai Baba, everyone.
Yeah.
I'll try to do my best.
And if there are any questions,
Yes,
don't hesitate to break in.
yes, please do. Let's keep
And
this
and
informal. Yeah,
and this is kind of late at night. If she can't get everything in tonight, we can stop a little earlier if you have questions to ask, because you've lived this whole life with Baba, and we have a number of us that would like to kind of know what the challenges you've had in your life with Baba, and how you've tried to dealt with
yeah.
deal with things.
Okay, so let me begin with Dad because my father's story is really a unique one. He was a soul that was really ripe for spiritual advancement. That is abundantly clear from the way his path led him to Baba. And his story begins from his very early childhood. And he writes in his diary, which Baba had told him to keep writing after he met Baba. He writes in his diary that from his very earliest memories that he can recall, these feelings of who is God and where is God and what is this creation all about, and his very deep, deep wanting to know, this feeling of God was very strongly within him. And mind you, with nobody having mentioned anything, nobody having told him anything, it was just naturally there. And his intense longing to know God, to become one with Him, all these feelings as a very young child. Now, in his youth, as he was a young child of elderly parents, his sister had taken him under her wing because his parents came from a very humble background, and being a very bright student in his young days, excelled in all kinds of academia and sports and whatnot. His sister, who was married into a wealthy family, had taken him under her wing and had brought him up in a princely way. However, she expected the very best from him. When I say the very best, I mean she absolutely was so strict with him that if he brought 99 out of 100 in a test, he would get severely punished. So things went along for a while, like that, and but he was very severely he felt the nurturing was missing from this relationship, from his sisters bringing him up. And he deeply felt, as a young child, he felt very neglected, he felt very not loved, and so forth. So at a very young age, he decided after a while that he had had enough of this, and he literally runs away to the house of his a close relative. And this lady, who we will come to know down the road who she is, but she was a married lady with her own children, married into the same family. And Minu felt great love for this lady, who also reciprocated the same love towards him. So, in other words, he became more a part of her family than his sister. As a young man, he wanted to, he had two thoughts. he wanted to either be a priest in our Zoroastrian culture, and that was denied him because he was not born into a religious family, into a priestly family. To become a priest in the Zoroastrian community, you have to be born in that particular line. So that was out of the question for him. Then he aspired to become a doctor, but that also was denied him because of financial reasons. Couldn't do that. But then he kept his search as a young man for God. He just kept his search up in any way he could. He read, he went to temples and shrines, he met with yogis and sadhus and all these religious, any experience, any religious experience he could have, he availed himself of, but to no avail. It was like a wild goose chase, and he was deeply frustrated. He would then, out of his frustration, he would go out into the fields and he would just commune with God up in the sky and talk to him, just unburden himself. And this became a habit after a while, which he enjoyed thoroughly. He was very, very fond of doing this. So as he grows up into a young man, um, as a young man, he also was into the grips and overwhelmed with feelings of lust. Now, this comes to play a very big part in Minoo's life where Baba is concerned. And this is one of the main hurdles, if you will, that Baba helps him overcome. So, this was, it's common among young people, I suppose, and as usual, but he, because he didn't have any guidance, because nobody was there to drive him in the right direction, this overwhelming feelings of lust would overwhelm him sometimes, and that would negatively affect his life as we see. Um, so he began to lose his all his good qualities and so forth, but he persevered. But even so, his intense longing for God just was so dominant. So we can see here that there's a tug of war going on within Minu. On the one hand, he has this intense love for God, and he's determined to find this God. But on the other hand, he has this tug of lust, full of lust love, what we call. And his affection for this lady who took him in the family and to bring him up, his love for her matured and grew, and was very, very deeply intense. And so it was reciprocated, you see, from both sides. Now, Minu says in his diary that it was like a volcano that both of them could not understand. But again, we bring this. Ishwan Baba says that this was a intense karmic bond that was there between the two of them, and that uh, one day they would both understand why this was the way it was. But anyway, so things went on this way, and he kept searching for his God. Now, what happens next? um, so anyway, so he goes on this way, and so as the saying goes, when one is destined for spiritual advancement, it, the feeling of love or lust goes to the extreme, and that's when it is said that when the pupil is ready, the master will appear, and that's exactly what happened with Minu. Now, as a young man, Minu had four friends in school who were like-minded spiritually, and they one day made a pact that they were going to find God. And so they were each going to go in a different direction. And if any one of them came any closer to finding God, they would let the others know. Now his story gets very interesting because you will see that through a series of experiences and happenings, he comes into focus here with Baba. But anyway, this is how it goes. So when he was in doing his search, and he comes across all these sadhus and yogis and whatnot, they however, most of them are rogues and cheats, and nothing really came of meeting them. And some of them, of course, having these occult psychic powers and whatnot. Um, One of them goes to commit an unnatural offense on him one day, and he becomes so disillusioned, so absolutely fed up with all this that he makes, he gives God an ultimatum. He says, I have done all I can to try and search for you, and I've come up with against nothing. Everything is like a big zero. So this is it. I am now committed to ending my life. And he says, he sounds him off. He says, this particular day, this particular time, I'm going to end my life. If by some miracle my life is saved, then that'll be, then I will know that you are there, that you exist. But other than that, he says, I will just go and end my life. So without telling anybody, at the height of his frustration, he goes out into the wilderness on this one particular hill outside of town in Karachi. And on this appointed day, he goes there quietly and he's very ready to end his life. Now, midnight comes. That was the appointed hour. And God had been put on full, a clear note was sounded to him, right? So the appointed hour comes and he's just about to commit the act when all of a sudden he hears Minoo, Minoo, and he's wondering who is that, and finally finds that one of his friends, one of the four friends that he had made this pact with, comes running up this hill. Now, mind you, he's told nobody about this. How the friend has found him is a miracle. But anyway, this friend comes running up and says, Minoo, Minoo, he says, stop, whatever you're doing, he says, you have to listen to me. You have to come with me to meet someone. So he takes him to this yogi who is uh, a yogi of a high order. And when Minu meets this yogi, he realizes that, oh my gosh, this was one of my teachers in my old school. Well, this was he had been a teacher in his prior days, but now he was this advanced yogi, and he would sit by the graveyard. And so Minu meets him, and even though this yogi had not found God himself, but he would be instrumental in guiding Minu to Baba. And how this happens is really amazing. So anyway,
Or just one moment.
yes,
Uh, that yogi kind of told his friend exactly
yes. So that was this. Yes, that's how that came about.
he
So what had
somehow
yes,
divined where he was
yes,
and the
this
danger. Yeah.
exactly. That was the amazing part. Is this yogi gets his friend, contacts him, gets his friend, and directs him inwardly to the spot where Minu is sitting to come to end his life. So this was the because he had seen in one of his samadhis, one of his meditations, that this was about to occur, and that's what prompted him to send his friend to save Minu's life. So after his meeting with this yogi, Minu then stays with him. He comes and sees him, sits with him every evening. The yogi teaches him all these different mantras and japas and so forth, and says, now this is very important. He says, he gives Minu a sacred thread, which Minu was to keep on his person. He says this is to protect him from all evil forces and save his life. And he teaches them all these mantras and says, this one is to stop you from being shot at, this one is to save you from snakes and so forth. And he tells him, don't take any of this light. Minu like doesn't know any of this. This was all like double dutch to him at that time. But he obeys him and he continues to be under his guidance and follow his orders and so forth, his guidance. So at this period, he one day he used to read avidly also a lot of spiritual material and so forth. And one day he comes across this book called Kabir Vani by Kabir Sahib. And in that book, it is said, at last he says he found his God. So he finds that God comes to earth at different times. different periods. And he says suddenly, and he also realizes that this is one of those times when God is presently on earth in human form. So he was very, very happy to have read this and at last feels that he's on the right track. And at least he knows now that God is somewhere on this earth. And so, and then another curious thing happens at this time is that one day he goes out and he collects pictures of all the different avatars from Zoroaster, Ram, Krishna, Buddha, Jesus. And of course, there's no picture of Muhammad. So, and then the last being the mayor of Karachi, which was his ideal at the time. He was like a mentor to me. So he collects all these pictures and he has them framed and he mounts them at the head of his bed in, in chronological order. So one day when he is visiting with this yogi, whose name is Master Ramsundar Pandey, he tells him that he will soon be doing parade. Now, this was again very odd to Minoo because he was just a clerk working at the time in an insurance company. But before he realized it, this prediction came true, and he finds himself going to the Central Police Training School in Nasik because he had enrolled as a student in the police training school. So when he's about to go to Nasik, the Guru Ramsundar Pandey tells him that he is going to have a very unique encounter in Nasik and he will meet a holy man at a certain direction from the school. Now he's in Karachi, mind you, in India. I mean, well, that was all India at the time, yeah. So little did he dream how important this prediction would be. So he goes to Nasik. Now, two events occur in Nasik consecutively as soon as he enrolls in the school. So the first is that he walks out the day he comes. He walks out a distance from the school out in the open to have his usual chat with God, and he's sitting on a boundary stone. And at a distance is this officer who comes out and sees something at a distance and thinking it's a target, he aims and fires. And he's aiming right at Minoo, not realizing it was somebody sitting there. So before this shot gets fired, a couple of servants and a barber who was among them rush to Minoo, seeing this happening, and they, quickly save him from that, from him being shot.
Is that one of those mantras from that yogi that may
Yes.
have
So there you go.
protected him?
Yeah, so this
from
was
the gunshot.
yes. Oh, and I forgot to mention that before he left Karachi, this Ramsundar Pandey goes to see him off at the dock, and he bows down to Minoo and actually takes his hand and puts it on his eyes, and Minoo thinks, how strange. And this happened to him a couple of times when even Ramakrishna Pandey, not Ramakrishna, Krishnamurti, I'm sorry, Krishnamurti, who was then a sage at the time, he also put his hand on Minoo's head and put his sort of put his eyes to his hands to his eyes and sort of revered him, if you will. And Minoo was nonplussed about this. But anyway, so coming back to the school, so this first, short thing happens and he gets missed and whatever. Now the next morning, the same barber who came running to save him comes into his room to, usually as he does to all the students. And the minute he comes to his room, he sees this ladder of ascent behind Minoo's bed. So he looks at that and he nods his head and he says, you're a misfit over here. He says, what you need to do is go down this road, which is Bombay Agra Road, and meet this holy man. And Minoo says, which holy man? What's his name? And he says, Meher Baba. Now, when he mentions Baba's name, Minoo immediately thinks of a couple of times years ago when he was just finishing his matriculation exam in school. He was going for his exam, But before that, when he had gone once to the bathroom in his aunt's house, they used to use, like, paper. They used to save newspapers and magazines and keep them in the toilet just for toilet purposes. But so one day when he was using the toilet, he found this magazine called Hindi Graphic. And on the cover of that was a picture of Baba, and it said Sri Meher Baba. So at that time, being that he was used to going to saints and sadhus and whatnot, he felt this was not right. So he tears that piece of paper with Baba's picture, and he folds it and puts it in a blotter in his among his books. And then, of course, he goes for his exam. Now, two things happen when he goes for his exam. One is that he, being a devout Zoroastrian, we always do the sadra, the kasti, the tying of the sacred thread. So, which he had completely forgotten to do before he goes for his exam. While he's giving his exam, the wind blows through and blows some papers off his desk, and out falls the picture of Baba that he had kept in his blotter. So here he is, a devout Zoroastrian, forgetting his Kasti prayers, going to the exam, but this Meher Baba had come with him, he had accompanied him. So he remembers that incident. Um, so anyway, yeah, and then once he had heard Baba being mentioned by some friends when he had come uh, from his way from Iran in the 20s and had touched Karachi, and they mentioned him. But by the time Minoo goes to the docks, he had already set sail, so he misses seeing him at that point. So these were the two instances that he remembers. Anyway, so he sets off this day, January 17th, 1932. He says, and it was the happiest day in his life. He sets off fully armed. He's now got the holy thread that the yogi has given him. He's got his Sadra Kasti. He's got his photo of Lord Zoroaster given, everything. He feels like he's armed like a soldier, and he goes to meet this fellow called Meher Baba. So he comes to the compound, and three um, three disciples come out to meet him. Ramju, a Muslim, Vishnu, a Hindu, and Dada Chandji, a Parsi. So he says to each one of them, I am a pagal. Pagal means mad person. Come to meet an elder pagal. Now, because he was so frustrated with his search over all these years and his coming into contact with all these rogues and cheats and people who had deceived him so many times, whatever, he feels from inside him that if Baba is truly who he says he is, then he will know who I am. So he says, so hence he says, I'm a pagal. I've come to meet this elder pagal. So each one of them goes and relays this message to Baba.
So I am, what's the translation?
Pagal, Pagal. Pagal means mad person.
So I'm a mad person, come
Yeah.
to meet an
Elder
older
man.
mad person.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So he just feels that it sounds idiotic to them, but he felt convinced that this would internally convey to Baba, if he was really holy, the silent and hungry heartbeats of a true seeker. So within minutes, the man called Meher Baba suddenly comes out and stands a few feet away from him. Minoo notes he appeared young, strongly built, strikingly handsome, and clean shaven. His lovely hair flowed down to his shoulders. His mustache was full. His eyes were fascinating. And above all, he had a broad, charming, unforgettable smile on his radiant face. He wore a long white robe-like garment with a hip-length colored coat of cream color, and he was holding a small wooden board. Then and there, Minoo felt a voice deep inside him saying, Minoo, here is God whom you have been searching for. From that moment of spontaneous joy and bliss, Minoo knew his search had ended. So from that time, so then Baba calls him inside and they sit down, and Baba is sitting in front of him with Chanji on the side. And Baba asks him, what are you here for? What do you want? Now, Minoo did not utter anything at first. He just kept silent, but he started speaking to Baba mentally. And he lashed out and he came out with all these, all his frustrated experiences and so forth. And every time he said he thought something negative, Baba would go, mm-mm, mm-mm, And every time he had a pleasant thought, Baba would smile and nod his head. So this went on for a while. Then after that, Baba says at the end of all this, his mental verbiage was done. Baba says, I have heard you completely. It is since your birth that this instinct is there within you. Do not worry. Do as I say. Forget I. Okay. Forget I. Every night, go to sleep in thoughts of me. Then he says, I take your responsibility. He says, it is not only you love me, but I love you. And it is I who have to repay a debt to you. So he says, then unburdens himself. He takes off all his paraphernalia, his mala and his bread and whatnot, and he thinks all this. He apologizes and says it's all very childish. And Baba says, no, he says, it is this that has brought you to me. So you are connected with me for since past lives. I have to repay the debt I owe you. Not only you love me, but I love you. So this was
So
his.
Goer, can
Yeah,
you go back to the thing that you read before that? What Baba said to him?
yes. When
I'm trying to think of what. It's a beautiful message.
yeah. So after it says okay. So Minoo addressed him from within, emptying out all his pent-up frustrations while telling Baba that if indeed he was who he said he was, he would know all this and be able to satisfy his inner cravings. To his amazement, using his alphabet board and via his disciple Chanji, Baba said, I have heard you completely. It is since your birth that this instinct is there within you. Do not worry. Do as I say. Forget I. Every night go to sleep in thoughts of me. Then began the verbal dialogue where Minoo unburdened himself and so on and so forth. And he fearlessly told Baba about meeting the old yogi and showed him a picture and then disarmed himself of all his spiritual paraphernalia, confessing to all these childish things. And immediately Baba replies, this is not childish. It is this that has brought you to me. He further stated, you are connected with me since past lives. I have to repay the debt I owe you. Not only you love me, but I love you.
Did your father ever say what Baba meant by "I owe a debt to you"?
No, I very often meant to ask him that. However, I failed to do
Yeah,
so, and I don't know what that means, or that's only Baba knows what that means.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So, but Master Ramsundar Pandey, I remember Baba's dad saying that Pandey had told him that his last few lives were wasted for some reason. His last few lives were wasted, but this time around, he is, Baba's there to give him that spiritual push.
What
So,
year are we? What year is this
uh,
meeting?
and this is 1931. 1932. I'm sorry, January 17th, 1932.
32. Thank
Yes,
you.
yes. So, so that was the end of this momentous meeting, and Minoo left with feelings of indescribable happiness. He was totally convinced that at last he had found his very own God and the Savior and Messiah that the world desperately needed. So he realized also that all his efforts to this day had not been in vain, that whatever happened to him happened for a reason, and there was significance to all his experiences to this point. So he found himself recalling incidents from his childhood, there was another incident which is very unique. So when he was a young child living in, I believe this was his aunt's house, and I'm guessing I was trying to figure out the year when this would have happened, and it had to be early 1920s, like maybe 23 or 24. And in 23, Baba had visited Karachi. He would go to the house of his spiritual sister, Pilamai Irani. Now, this is Dad's story. So Dad says when he was a child and living at his aunt's house, they used to have an old African watchman, a night watchman who would, that's very typical back home in the wealthy families, often have these night watchmen who stay and guard the house at night. So this old African watchman tells him one day that, do you know God comes to visit you every night? And Dad, and so he says he comes and he sits by your bedside and he pets you, like and he says he comes every night. And later on, years later, found out that Baba had been in Karachi in 1923 and was staying only a few houses away from where his aunt's house was. So, and when he asked the night watchman to describe Baba, his description absolutely fit Baba to a T. So that was yet another incident that was, unbeknownst to him, had happened in his childhood.
So Goer, wait a moment. Let's see if anybody has any
Yes,
questions.
questions.
And they don't just necessarily have to be with her father's, I mean, just as a change of pace, you can ask Goer anything about her life. I mean, she'll tell us about her meeting with Baba. That's a different thing. But, like Joshua might be interested in some of the challenges that she has been up against in her life. Growing up.
I've skipped over a lot because Minoo has, his life had so much to it and is so extensively published in his book, which I finally managed to publish. Baba had told him to write his diaries throughout after meeting him, and told him to keep a diary of his life with him. And Dad has these extensive diaries over the number of years he had spent with Baba. Of course, he had played with Baba all these, after he meets him and comes into his close orbit, he becomes one of his mandli. And Baba tells him that he is one of his 120 close disciples. Minoo has played carom, cricket, card games of Laris, and all this with Baba. He has done a lot of must work with him during the must phase of Baba's life, when he was dealing with the must in the 40s. And that's a whole other chapter that goes along with that. But
Are all these formative years in Pakistan, Goher?
I'm sorry, say that again.
Are these formative years and the years with the foster parent and the aunt, were they all in Pakistan?
Well, it's Pakistan now, but at the time it was all India.
Right. Thank you.
It was all India, right? But Dad was in Karachi, yes,
Correct.
and Baba was then in Mehrabad, Nasik, all those areas. So,
Without moving, he found himself in a different country.
yes, that's right. And no, actually, in the new life, my father was one of the yes walas. There were yes walas, no walas, and arrangement walas. And Dad had wanted to be yes walas and be with Baba. But Baba himself said to Dad, I want you to be in Karachi. So there is a reason for my keeping you in Karachi. So he accepts him as a yes wala, but then he tells him that he will live his life in Karachi.
Yeah. Let's see, though, if anybody has any questions at all.
Jeff, I have a question. It's Marta.
Yeah.
Hi, Goher, Jai Baba.
Jai Baba, Jai Baba.
Goher, when you were growing up then, since your father was so close to Baba and probably your whole family, how do you feel your father's intimacy with Baba influenced you or guided you? And also, can you share something special you do every day to connect more with Baba that maybe could help us?
Mm. Good question.
Beautiful.
Yes, my father, of course, was the biggest influence in my life. His absolute and total devotion and faith in Baba was made a huge impact on me. So for me, growing up in that household it just came so naturally, it flowed so naturally that I grew up with God. I mean, I just knew Baba was God. There was just no other. But now, when I would be in school, and of course, coming from a Zoroastrian family, we have the religion on the one side as well. So, yes, I've had my Navjot, and all that has taken place as per our religion. But my friends sometimes would, who came to know that our family believed in Baba and followed him, they would sometimes, question me or ridicule or whatever, and I would say, I would think to myself, say all you want. I have my own God with me. He's personal, and I know, and you don't. So, as a child, as a young child, but to think of Baba, yes, he it he's been with me, of course, all along, and influenced my every decision, my every move in life, guides my every, what should I say, everything that I do, of course, goes through Baba. So, and that's, starts from the very beginning, and I'll tell you that story down the road when we come to it. Um,
How do you access that? How do you access that guidance from Baba?
how do I access the guidance? I just talk to him. I just talk to him uh, in my thoughts, in my prayers. He's with me literally almost. I would say he's just there in the behind my every thought is Baba. So he's with me all along. Everything that I do, whether I'm cooking in the kitchen or whether I'm playing with my grandchildren or whether I'm whatever I'm doing, it's something. It just I think of Baba naturally now. It's come to a point where I don't have to force myself to remember him, if you will. And but see, that takes a lot of effort in the beginning. It doesn't come. It doesn't happen overnight. Even though I was born in a Baba family, even though I had Baba with me all along, but consciously, as you get to be an adult and you get involved in life and all the happenings that surround you and so forth, you sometimes, Baba does take a back seat, and you have to remind yourself to think of him, so that it starts with, but for years now, this has been my practice going back, I don't know how many years. That first thing when you wake up in the morning, you start your day with Baba. So when I wake up in the morning, it's Baba, I entrust my every thought, word, and deed to you. That's how I start my day every morning. And then you go along through your day and you think of him naturally, you make an effort to think of him at 12 o'clock. You make an effort to think of him at 5 o'clock. And then, of course, before and after every meal, which I do, of course. And at night, it's you close your day with Baba, I submit my every thought, word, and deed to you. So, in other words, you are starting your day with having Baba as a net around you, so that as he says, if you think of me, it's like having a net around you. So whatever comes to you does not affect you. It is then I who take that responsibility, that burden. But I think of him very naturally, very, very almost continuously, I would say.
Can you share some time when you had to make a decision in life and you didn't know what Baba wanted, or where you were in a tremendous dilemma of whether you should do this or do that, or whether you should end this, or I mean something where it wasn't something easy. I mean something that you had to carry with you for days maybe, trying to determine the best what Baba would want.
Oh dear. Oh, yes, there have been times. Now you're putting me on the spot. Let's see. Let's see. Hmm. Um, there have been some tough times, but I mean, very personal tough times. Without going into too much detail, I will just say, suffice it to say that I tried everything that I possibly could as a human being to get over the situation at the time. And everything from, talking to others to try and help, or getting guidance from here and there, or and just being totally, I was at a point where I was very disillusioned, let's put it that way, very, very disillusioned in life. And after trying every which way to try and solve this dilemma, I finally came to the conclusion. I mean, I had even gone out and, like my father, I literally had gone out and I was yelling at him. I was so angry. I was so frustrated. I was so disillusioned with life. I just didn't know which way to turn. Yes, I was very, very low, very low. And at that point, I said, Baba, now it's in your hand. I give up. I totally give up. Whatever happens from here on, I will take it as your will. And believe you me, it was at that point, that was the turning point. And at that point, things started to unravel, if you will. And it has brought me the peace and the ultimate solution, joy, whatever you want to call it, happened right after, soon after that. So yeah. So when I totally left everything to Baba, it was I didn't know whether this would keep happening, whether it would slow down or not. But I said, whatever it is, whatever happens, if it's meant to be, I will take whatever comes my way as your will. And that's when things started to unwind. So you see, I had to come to that point for this change to take place, for this metamorphosis to happen. And it did. It did when I finally left it to him. So yeah.
Yeah,
And
there was one time when you mentioned that at a very low point when you
yes,
were in a post office.
yes, this was the exact time.
Oh,
Yes, I was a mess. I was going between two towns looking for an address, if you will. And I come to this next town. I don't even know how to describe it. I was driving in a blur of tears. I was crying my soul out. But anyway, I get to this we lived in a rural upstate New York at the time. And this was a drive between two very small towns. And so I come to this one town, and it's a very tiny little post office. And I'm going in there to find out this address because I literally didn't know where I was going. And I'm standing in line at the post office and waiting to go up to the clerk. And in my blur, in my absolutely, state mess that I was, I look up and I see this person standing ahead of me at the cashier, at the teller rather, and he's wearing a white shirt with green lettering on the back of his shirt, and the lettering says, "Remember, dot dot dot, I am with you." If that wasn't Baba standing there, and just the feeling I got at that moment was, Baba is with me. Baba is with me. That's it. And no sooner had I had this thought, the person was out of the picture. He had moved away. I quickly ran up. I got my direction and I ran out to see if I could find who this person was. I mean, how did this materialize? Where did this person come from? Nobody. Parking lot was empty, no car, nobody. And that was just for me. So that was Baba telling me. And this has happened many, many times. This was I think, the most profound experience I think I had. But there have been times where I would, go through a difficult phase, and I'd be looking out the window and I would see his image on a stone. Or this has happened many times. Yeah.
yeah, beautiful.
That answers your question.
Well, no, but Marta, you had something, you had a second question, I think.
No, she answered it. My question was, how does she remember Baba that can help us to remember him? And she told us about waking up with Baba
Yeah.
and repeating like that. Goher, when you have, like during your day, if something comes up, do you actually like ask Baba, like ask him, what do you want? Or
No, not what I want. No,
what he wants.
I've come to the point where I leave everything up to him. So whatever he wants is what I want. Yes.
Okay.
So part of my prayer is, let me do your will always and fulfill your wish always.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. That, yeah. Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Any other, before she goes on, any other questions?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hello.
Very good to hear from you. Thank you very much for sharing.
Sure.
I've asked a couple other people who have met Baba, what are the differences or similarities of being in Baba's presence and now that he's not in the body, and feeling his presence nowadays versus when you were physically there? Because I can only relate to in terms of like when I think of, for example, my grandmother, I remember what it was like to be in her presence and the detail, the quality of that versus now she's not here and I can remember her, I feel her, but not in the same way. I think when we're talking about the God man. So I'm just curious what you can relate with that. Thank you.
Yeah, so I met Baba as a very young child. I was just shy of my 8th birthday when I first met him. So that was in 1962. And I remember sitting next to my father after having bowed down to him and having had his embrace. I was sitting with my father, and my father said to me, just keep looking at Baba, because the more you look at him, the more you will imbibe him in your memory, and that will, just don't take your focus off of him. Imbibe as much of him as you can, because this will last you a lifetime. And the next and last time I met him was when I was just shy of 11 years old, a few years later, in 65. And the same thing, Dad kept impressing on me to just focus on Baba. And that was, and so, of course, at that point, it was awesome. The feeling was of such elation I cannot even explain. I was just a child, but I remember, my heart just being overflowing with love, with his love. And today, I just feel his presence very strongly sometimes, sometimes not so strongly, but the more you think of him, the more he is with you. It's an inner knowing that he's always with you, and it has been proven to me in so many ways. So I don't know, just in the smallest instances, whether it's he is just always I just feel so protected. I know that he is with me 24/7. I can't explain it. That's
I mean, you say like you have the knowing, but not always the immense feeling, but the knowing never goes.
Never goes.
Right?
Yeah.
So that even if you're, say, not feeling him, you can live off of the knowing.
Yes.
Right? Is that, yeah, beautiful.
That's right. Of course, the occasional dreams I've had of him too, which come into the picture now and again. So those are very special too. And Baba says when he comes to us in a dream, it is him that comes to us in a dream. It's not just a dream.
Any other questions? Let me just see there. Let me see if there's anybody. I don't have the second gallery.
I have a question. I want to know, Goher, like, where did you fit in? Like, your father met Baba in 32,
Yes.
or he married and then,
My
yeah.
father. Okay, so Dad met him in 1932, and he was, from then on, his life was so devoted to Baba that he was not thinking of marriage in any way, shape, or form. And then, of course, his relationship to this family relative, as I said, was so strong that, you know, that mutual bond was very, very strong. It was sometimes frowned upon with, you know, because, you know, being in the family and so forth, that this is so unusual and that, but nothing deterred my father's love for this lady. He had the most profound love for her and she for him, but in a beautiful way. And Baba, you know, said to them that you will one day understand why this is the way it is. And he called her, Baba called her the angel of Karachi. He termed her the angel of Karachi. So very unique karmic bond they shared. So for 20 years after Dad met Baba, he had not married. He in the family. He was almost like known as a confirmed bachelor. Nobody expected him to get married until he met my grandfather. This is in the mid 40s in Karachi, and this was Kekashu Patel, who he met through Baba's spiritual sister Pilamai. So Dad knew Pilamai as well as my grandfather knew him, and so he met the family. And when he met my mother, it was love at first sight. He just fell for her in a big way, although she was much younger to him, much younger. There was a 20-year difference between my mother and my father. So, but then when they met, the relationship, of course, was brought to Baba's, you know, attention, and with his blessing, they were married in 1954 in February, Valentine's Day, 1954. They were married with Baba's blessing, and when that happened, before that happened, Baba said to Minoo, "Marry Franny, marry Franny, marry Franny," 3 times. So yeah, so they were married, and then in December is when yours truly made my debut. Yeah, and so then my story goes from there.
Are you only child?
No, my dear, I had a brother. So shall I go ahead, Jeff, and tell my story of when I came, how it was, or shall?
Yeah. Well, I wanted to ask you, now I forgot. I forgot the question.
Go ahead. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, about your mother.
Yes, Franny.
Did your mother take right to Baba, or?
No, at first she did not, and her story also is quite unique. She came, of course, from a Zoroastrian family, and in those days in Karachi as well as Bombay, there was a very uh, intense antagonistic feeling towards Baba because he was from the Zoroastrian community and declared himself to be God. People did not take to that, of course, you know, in many ways, and there was much negativity about him in the press, amongst the Zoroastrians and so forth. So when Mom first came to know of Baba through her father and then also through my dad, she did not take to Baba right away. It took her a while, but the very first time she met Baba, which was, you know, Dad cajoled her into coming with him this one time with them to Mehrabad. And when she finally came and met Baba, the minute she bowed down to him, the tears just flowed and it gushed, and she was like a dam that burst open. And from that point on, yes, of course, she was all Baba's. Yeah,
Beautiful.
it took her a while. It took her a while.
So, anything else, or go ahead.
Oh, Jeff. Oh,
That's Peter, I bet.
Can't hear him.
Well,
yeah.
oh, Somehow, Peter.
I
Yeah.
see if this works. It had been working, doing it the other way. I, I hope I'm accessible now.
Yeah, we are able
Thank
to
you,
hear you.
Goher, for sharing this with us. Something I'm listening as well as I can. I'm wondering if you can go through, this may be a challenge, your father's transition point from being so lustful to being an utter devotee of Meher Baba. I don't know if that was, if you're able to hear that. I don't know if it's too much of a challenge. to
Yeah,
understand it.
I don't know if I quite heard him quite correctly. Something about how he overcame the lust issue. Is that it?
Yeah, I guess the transition.
The transition.
Well,
that
that's part of it.
was, okay.
Right, having such a challenging time. I mean, following like this, following God and following lust, to being someone that is so devoted to Meher Baba, that
Yes.
sounds like a tremendous
So,
transition.
so this
Does
is,
that make sense to you?
yeah, this comes all after he meets Baba is when the time comes for his transition, for his training, if you will, as a disciple. So Baba says to him on the matter of lust, he says, give me 1 second here. Yeah, this is a very profound, and Minoo has always said that his life in relation to Baba has always been an open book. There's nothing that he needs to keep hidden, or he's not worried about how people will, relate to whatever. But okay, so yeah, there were two things that Minoo had to learn when he came under Baba's training. One was on obedience, and then the other was this lust issue, which Baba told him that. Okay, so Minoo gets very frustrated sometimes regarding this, and he says to Baba that, even yogis of a very high stature have this lust feeling goes up to you almost till the sixth plane, and that is one of the last things that you have to, overcome to merge with God. So he says, if even some, saintly people like that have such a tough time with that, then who am I, or how will I overcome this kind of thing? And so Baba says, he says, reassured, everything will be well. Today I'm giving you a master key. At one point he tells Minoo, which note carefully. He who always loves is in me, but he who engages in lust keeps away from me. Be very, very careful. If you really desire to be near me and with me, avoid lust. As soon as you are dragged heavily by lust, close your eyes and try to concentrate on the root of your nose between the two eyes and think of me. Do not do this for a long time. He further said, love lifts a man up while passion or lust drags him down below. Do not worry for being lifted up by love, worry for being pulled down by lust. It follows that if you are not pulled down, you will automatically be pulled up. Baba also said that this struggle was an eternal one, and one could hardly escape it on one's own, unless he had the hand of a living master on his head to free him from it. But when Minoo protested, saying how yogis of a high order had failed in this respect, what hope did he have to overcome it? To which Baba replied that he had to make the initial effort and then be worthy of his grace. Does that answer your question?
Would you read that again? That was a pretty amazing thing that Baba said.
Yeah.
Read that again, please.
So he says, more importantly, I'm giving you a master key today, which note carefully. He who always loves is in me, but he who engages in lust keeps away from me. Be very, very careful. If you really desire to be near me and with me, avoid lust. As soon as you are dragged heavily by lust, close your eyes and try to concentrate on the root of the nose between the two eyes and think of me. Do not do this for a long time. He further said, love lifts a man up while passion or lust drags him down below. It follows that if you are not pulled down, you will automatically be pulled up. Baba also said that this struggle was an eternal one and one could hardly escape it on one's own unless he had the hand of a living master on his head to free him from it. But when Minoo protested, saying how yogis of a high order had failed in this respect, what hope did he have to overcome it? To which Baba replied that he had to make the initial effort and then be worthy of his grace.
Wow.
So,
But then Peter was asking how he made the transition, and that was kind of the method that
yes,
he followed what Baba said there.
yes.
Can I throw in another part to it?
After he came in Baba's contact, this feeling of lust gradually did decrease. I'm sorry?
Well, what I thought
Unfortunately,
also you were alluding to was an example would be how when you want to say something, Jeff?
no, I just to say you're breaking up a lot.
Yeah,
but keep going.
Are you saying something, Jeff?
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
just saying that you're breaking up.
Oh boy. Yeah, I'm not sure what to do about that. I may need to switch. I'm seeing if I can get this out. Then maybe switch to my iPhone. When Eric was a kid, was a boy, he made references to he just wanted to go play with his friends, not be bothered hanging out with Mayor Baba. On the other hand, he became the key male disciple. And I thought I heard you say something where your father wasn't that interested in Mayor Baba. He was interested in more worldliness, and then there was a transition point to being utterly devoted. So it wasn't just to do with lust. I think lust was a component of that. More his wanting to be, say, more worldly, and then going to be utterly devoted to Baba. Does that make sense to you?
No, I'm not following you really.
Yeah. No. But what she said, his whole overriding thing was seeking God, and then this is one of the side hassles that he had to deal with, right?
That's right.
I mean, his sights were on finding God, and the worldliness was kind of something he was tripping over, but not. It wasn't a goal.
So this was just an obstacle that he had to overcome, and how Baba helps him to overcome that so beautifully. So there's a lot more, and of course, it's all in the book that I published. And,
Well, it's nice
You were
to
going
hear.
to tell us that you are not an only child. I
oh
thought
yes.
you was an only child, but anyway, you're not an only child.
No, I was not. After I came along in 1954 in December, and of course, there's a whole story about how I was named and so forth. If you want me to get into that, I will. But 6 years after I was born, we had.
Tell that story again of how you were named. I love it.
That is a unique story. So I came along December 9th in 1954. And at that time, and of course, my father sent a cable right away to Baba, who was at the time in Satara, I believe. But he was in a period of intense seclusion at the time. So all the correspondence that would come from all over the world was put aside, and Baba was not dealing with anybody or any correspondence. So with the result, yours truly had no name, because my father absolutely, had deep faith and knew that Baba would send my name when the time was right. In spite of my grandparents, making this big hullabaloo that you people are crazy and you're not naming her, whatever. So 5 months go by where I had no name, and The only stipulation Baba had said while he was in seclusion was that if somebody in his close orbit were to pass away, that information should be brought to him right away. And as it happened 5 months later in April of 1955, Adi and Rhoda Dubash. Now, Adi Dubash was my father's cousin. And it was actually his mom that had taken my father in when he was young. So when Adi and Rhoda had two children, Merwan, who was the older son, and Homi, who was the younger son. And when Homi, age 4, had fallen from a second-story window and died of severe head trauma, when news of Homi's death reached Baba in Satara, he had come out briefly from his seclusion at the time. So at that time, all the collected correspondence was, brought to his attention, and of course, Dad's telegram announcing my birth and asking for Baba to name me. So Baba called all his women disciples who were with him at the time, Mera, Mani, Dr. Goher, Meru, all of them. And so he looked at Mera and he said, now there are too many Meras. We've given your name too many times. Then he looked at Mani and he said, Mani, no, he says, even you, he says, too many times, no. Then third was Dr. Goher. So he looks at her and he says, well, what do you think? Should we give your name? And Dr. Goher said, Baba, it's your wish. So Baba says, done. And he has Erich write a letter to Baba, to Minoo in Karachi, saying, today, April 21st, Baba has named your daughter Goher into parentheses, jewel. The meaning of the word Goher is jewel. So, so I have that letter in my possession, and it is one of my treasured possessions to this day. So that was my birth story. 6 years after my birth, my brother came along in November of 1960. Somehow Baba had already heard of his birth before Dad could even inform him. And right away he sent a cable saying, name your son Merji. My brother was named Merji. Fortunately, we lost my brother many years ago in 1986. He was a Pan Am employee in Karachi for Pan American Airways, and he went to work one day as a ground engineer. And so in those days, the aircraft were away from the terminal, and everything had to be bussed back and forth to the airplanes as they came in and took off. So he went to work one day, and he needed to go up into the cockpit to get a fuel sheet signed by the captain. And he goes up into the aircraft, the jeep pulls up, and these 4 men dressed in security uniforms rush up the gangway and storm the plane and secure it and hold the plane hostage. This flight had come in from Bombay on its way to the west. And my brother happened to be caught inside. And after 17 long hours of negotiations and whatnot, which had failed, they opened fire. And my brother was one of the first to be shot in the back of the head.
Oh, right.
So Merji was 25 years old.
Gee.
Now, the interesting thing here is that in our Baba community in Karachi, there were 3, they had the 4 pillars of Mehrabad were Vishnu and Padri and Endu and Adi Senior, right? Right. So in Karachi, that we had the 3 Baba pillars were my father, Minoo, Adi Dubash, and Adi Arjani. And as it turned out, all 3 of them gave up a son to Baba.
Wow.
Yeah. So Adi Dubash lost Homi when he was only 4 years old. Adi Arjani lost his second son, Faridun, when he was a young teenager. And then my brother when he was 25.
Yeah.
So I had a brother, but that's it.
Thank you. I'm sure that was very
Yeah.
painful to tell us, but thank you so
Yeah.
much. It's so touching.
Goer, I'm I know you have enough material for another whole evening, I'm
Oh,
sure.
yes, yes, and I don't want to keep everybody up so late. I have tons of material, yes. Minoo's drinking and,
Because we've got your father up to his first meeting with Baba, but he had an amazing life with Baba.
yes, he did.
I don't know if we should break off here. And,
We
you
have
know,
any other
because
questions?
this way it'll give you plenty of space and time next time. What do
Okay,
you think?
sure, absolutely.
Well, what do you people feel out there? Okay, yeah,
A little more. How about till 11:30?
A little bit more. I'm up.
Yeah,
I'm just
yeah,
waking up, you know.
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
I'm just waking up.
Are there any questions that uh, that are out there lingering?
Hey,
Gorgeous.
Goher, I had one question.
Yes, sir.
You mentioned about the dreams you had, and Baba never came into my dream, but I thought, so how will I get him into my dream?
You don't.
No, the question is, did Baba coming into your dreams happen because of some stressful situation in your life and you're looking for answers, or it just
No,
random? Just random.
this one dream I had was very random. It just came out of the blue, and it was so significant that I recorded it right away as soon as I woke up. But I have it written down. How about I share it with you next time?
Yeah,
Right.
perfect. Yeah,
Sure, thank you.
yeah. Joshua, any questions that come to your mind?
I always have lots of questions, but I'm just recovering from
Uh-oh.
a severe fever illness, so I'm not my perky state as usual. But I'm sure I'll have probably some to chat with in person. You know, just if later as I meet Goher. But yeah, another time I think.
Yeah,
Sure.
But thanks.
okay. Yeah, yeah. Get well. Well, let's see. Let's see if we can have a final poem from Michael Childs.
We are not able to hear you, Michael.
He's working at it. Oh, and if someone could have, is Mayor Prasad here? He usually has great quotes. Let's see if he's there. Mayor Prasad, have you got a very final quote for us?
Let me see. Yeah, I have one quote. It's a quote probably all of you heard, but
yeah. But we'll wait after Michael reads a poem.
okay.
But Goher, wonderful to hear, these, I mean, there are just not many, like I say, not many people who have around it have met Baba personally, and it's, or been the daughter of one of Baba's intimate mandali, and but there's a lot of beautiful story yet ahead from, about Minoo.
And Goher, you're really a good storyteller. The way you present it is so clear and so beautiful. I just want to tell you so you know. We're really enjoying this. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. So Michael, are we going to hear from Michael at all, or is this, he started observing the silence, but he still moves his lips. I mean, it's not the same kind of silence that Baba observed, but he's getting there.
Can you hear me? There
Yeah,
we go.
hey, yeah.
Just one little button that said, okay, well, excuse me. I thought I'd read you a poem about sex and lust. Causal H. But Lord, I argue, isn't sex a trap that lures me away from you, losing me in false pleasures, counterfeits of love? Michael, Were I not infinitely patient, you would try my patience. Listen well, listen deep. This is the secret of the game. A woman isn't happy unless you make love to her. She is the earth, a blossom soft and tender. Do what comes naturally. Your pursuit will please her. By pleasing her, you will please me, for I am you, and you are me. Your seed will bring forth children who will blossom in your love. In that flowering of love, you will understand the purpose of the universe. Appreciate the paradise I made for you as you journey towards the goal. When your hearts become as one, reaching deeper into silence, you will discover there my heart, singing in its splendor. As you learn to love each other, you will learn to love me. Love is why I made you parts of me, unconscious of my love.
Beautiful.
I have another one if you're in the mood.
Okay, one more, and then we're gonna get Mayor Prasad. Okay, go ahead.
That's okay. When I announced my plans to marry another time, my friends thought me mad. There he goes, carried off by his genitals again, inelegantly but aptly put. A sage said, "You know that sex is binding." That sage was actually Adi. Yes, I replied without a pause. It is my path. God promised me that married life could bring me to the very door of his realization. Regardless of past failures to assail the gates of heaven, I plunged into the whirlpool again, seeking the promised pearl. And God has kept his promise. Whether at the door of bliss or not is of no importance and impossible to tell. Of such joy to hear his laughter in her voice. Never have I felt such love for you, Lord. You guard your secret well.
Okay. Now, so let's have, we'll hear, have Mayor Prasad do a last reading, and then we'll have a few moments of silence.
Okay. This is Baba's message in 1965 in Guru Prasad. This time of your being with me, I do not intend giving you a lot of words to exercise your minds. I want your minds to sleep so that your hearts may awaken in my love. You have had enough words. I have had enough words. It is not through words that I give what I have to give. In the silence of your perfect surrender, my love, which is always silent, can flow to you, to be yours always to keep, and to share with those who seek me. When the word of my love breaks out of its silence and speaks in your hearts, telling you who I really am, you will know that that is the real word you have always been longing to hear. Baba.
Hey, Baba.
Jai Baba. Boy.
Hey, Baba.
Thank you again, Goher. you
Thank
know.
you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity, Jeff, to share.
Yeah.
So
No,
much,
we're-
Goher.
It's amazing how,
Thank you,
you know.
Goher.
Oh, someone is not unmuted. No, this is, you know, all this helps, you know, it just makes following Baba and drawing closer to him more accessible.
That's right. That's why Baba told my father to keep his diary continuous. And finally, we were able to publish his book back in 2013 after many, many, many years of it being edited and re-edited and so forth. But with Norshiwan's help, we finally got it done. And of course, this is the book, The God Speaker.
Yeah. And he was a very fine writer, you know, writing, you know, I mean, his quite eloquent writer.
So yeah, he always felt that if his story touched even one person and was able to help one person, then his work was done. He was-
It's called the name, someone's asking the name of it, God Seeker,
Yeah,
right?
it's called The God Speaker here. Yeah. You see?
It's a beautiful book, Goher.
Thank you.
Beautiful.
Thank
I
you.
could
Yeah.
not put it down.
Thank you.
And thank you for sharing all you have.
Sure.
Thank
Yeah.
you so much. Jai Baba.
Jai Baba.
Yeah,
My pleasure. Absolutely.
Thank you.
yeah. I'll let you know when we have her speak again.
Sure.
Goher, where are you? You're in the United States?
Yes, dear. We're in South Central Florida now.
Oh, really? Right.
Yeah.
Do you know the Metas?
The who?
Merwan and Ruki Mehta?
Mirwan and
Mehta,
Mehta. Mirwan, where is he?
No, he's in
North Carolina. But, you know, they have relatives and things in Florida. I thought you might know them.
Oh, no, I'm not aware of them. I know Mirwan Dubash, who's in up in Canada, in Toronto. He's, of course, my dad's cousin in the family. So he's a distant cousin of mine through dad. And I know Mirwan Mystery also in Pennsylvania. We used to be very close when we lived up in New York.
Yeah.
I'm going to see if I can get Merwan Mystery to share
Yes.
his times, because he's got some.
Oh, he has a treasure trove. Yes, a whole life with Baba. Yes.
So I will let you know.
Yeah, O'Hare, you have a treasure trove. Yeah, really. Yeah, I hope you come again soon.
Thank you.
Oh, from Goher, yes.
Yeah, really.
Yeah. So I'll let you know. You know.
All right.
It'll be on the sooner side within a couple of weeks if it works for you.
Sure, sure.
Yeah.
Goher, when did Minoo pass?
Minoo passed in 1984.
Oh, I would have met him. Thank you.
Yeah, and then my brother in 86.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, and some of those quotes from Baba to your father are really wonderful.
Yeah. Sure. Very, very informative, very heavy, but very informative, yes, and life-changing. So,
yeah.
But his lessons in obedience, there's so much more that that we'll share next time.
Yeah, wonderful.
Yeah.
Well.
All right.
I guess the bar has got to clear out at some point.
Thanks, Jeff.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Jai Baba.
Jai Baba.
Jeff,
Wonderful.
Thank
you.
Hey,
Get
Baba.
better, Joshua.
Hey, I wanted to make, hey, Alan, I just want to ask Alan here something. On Tuesday, do you feel like sharing that experience you had at work, or is that a little too personal? And how Baba responded?
Yeah, I could share that. No problem.
You know, if you want to kind of know what what you have to deal with down here on the gross level with Baba, he's got and work and fellow employees. It's a very touching thing. What Baba makes you do, when every bit of you is saying you don't want to do it. What
Yeah,
you
I
have,
can share, sure.
yeah, beautiful.
Hey, I had one question for you, Jeff,
Yeah,
or anybody who might know. There was this architect, I guess, that was visiting Padre in one of these recent, one of these Meher Center online newsletter videos. There's this video of Padre talking to this guy named, and I couldn't hear the name exactly, but it's
Anthony Thorpe, maybe.
no, it sounded like he was saying Morty or Mart Shaw, something like that. I don't know if anybody knows this guy, but his interaction with Padre in this video is just, I've never seen. I mean, I don't know. Padre was just kind of tearing into this guy. I was just like, well, I mean, in a very loving way, but it was very intense.
it wasn't like Ty Provosti.
I could show you a picture of him right now. I could just screen share. Just I don't know if you can pick him out, but
Oh yeah.
this guy.
There is a guy named Ty Provosti
Provosti.
from New Orleans.
Anybody?
That's not Ty Provosti.
Not him, no.
Huh.
There's Gary Kleiner.
No question. No question. For mental gymnastics going on.
I said to you, I'll do it with love. Do you understand?
We understand. It is that. You are infected already. Yeah, I told him.
Oh, pardon.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know him actually.
Okay. Well, I was trying to understand. I was trying to see if anybody knew, but I guess not. It's all right. Stop the share. Yeah, the way he was interacting with Padre was he wasn't answering any of Padre's questions. It was very intense interview, I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No. Well, I guess.
Oh, Jeff, I'm wondering if Alan could give an introduction to what happened to him at work. Would he mind? Would you mind, Alan, or we calling it quits tonight?
Oh no, I mean I can. Well, I'll talk about it on Tuesday, but it's just really simple. I mean, harsh lessons in doing my very best to be loving and kind in the midst of intense of anger, people being angry at me, and people not treating me correctly, standing up for what I think intuitively is like, standing up for myself. And yeah, I mean, I can't really give a summary, but I'll go into it on Tuesday for sure.
Someone, we all, I mean, many of us have had people that had kind of real negative attitudes toward us for years. I mean, that happens. I mean, that can be part of the Baba territory. And he had such a thing at work.
Is it going to be recorded? I'm going to be at work.
Yeah, it'll be recorded. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, I hate to go.
He has to go. Bye-bye.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, no, I guess.
Nice.
Hey, Baba, everybody.
Jai Baba.
Much
Jai
love.
Baba.
Thank you.
Jai Baba.
Jai Baba. Jai Baba.
Jai Baba. Oh, yeah, we'll get Nasreen, you say Avatar Mayor Baba 3 times.
Yes. Ready?
Yeah, let her do it.
Avatar Meher Baba Ki Jai. Avatar Meher Baba Ki Jai. Avatar Meher Baba Ki Jai.
Now the evening's complete. I love that voice.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Good night.
Jai Baba.
Jai Baba.